Well, we are definitely far from the beautiful beaches along the Pacific Ocean. This is the land of snow and ice.
Alistair Johnson has a strike. Joe Spills. Larin!
2 games, 2 wins, including a huge one over Mexico, sees Canada atop the CONCACAF World Cup qualifying table. To get more on the game, the milestones, and the moments, we've reached Alexandre Gangué-Ruzic. Alexander, so glad you could join us from Edmonton. You were there in the press box watching this first win over Mexico since the 2000 Gold Cup. I mean, can you put this performance into perspective for us?
I mean, it's surreal. It's massive. I mean, the last time Canada beat Mexico, Alphonso Davies, Canada's star player, wasn't even born yet, and Jonathan David was just a month old. It kind of gives you an idea. And that was just Canada's last win over Mexico. Canada's last win over Mexico in 1976, which at that point, pretty much no one on the Canadian team was born, if that. So it just it gives you an idea of how long this victory, this kind of victory, has been for this Canadian team. They've been waiting for this kind of win for ages, and now that they finally got it, it really feels surreal.
Cyle Larin, right off the bat, a brace last night. 2 goals, ties him with Dwayne De Rosario for most all-time for the Canadian men's national team. Can you speak to his performance, especially, less so about Costa Rica, because we know he had a bit of a stomach bug, but last night against Mexico in his performance? He
was just clutch. I mean, it was kind of those moments that you have to you're as a striker, they're tough to manage. It's a cold game. You're trying to stay warm. You're trying not to, you're trying to run around, but you're not getting involved in the game. You have to stay awake. You have to stay focused. And I think his first goal was a prime example of that, being the first one on the rebound there after Alistair Johnston's shot. And then just you look again at the second half, just being aware, getting in behind on that free kick where everyone kind of just forgot about him. He's like, okay, perfect. You don't want to forget about me. I'll put my foot on it and score. I think it's just the kind of prolific, night you want from a striker who, despite the elements, despite having every reason to want to freeze himself out of the game, just stayed awake, stayed involved, and pounced on two moments. And that's been learned for Canada this year. He's always been there in those moments when his teams needed him. And there's no better example than his game last night.
Let's talk about a player who's been a fixture for 2 decades with this team, Atiba Hutchinson. Now the most caps of any Canadian men's national team player, passing Julian de Guzman. He put in a shift last night. And can you talk about his leadership and what he means to the team?
Oh, it's massive. I think you can really tell that he's a proper leader on this team, a lot younger team, and he's been around for that. I think he made his debut back in 2003. No one else on the team was even playing professionally when he made his debut for Canada. So he's obviously seen it all. And it was just special that he broke the record wearing the armband in a massive game against Mexico. And he put up a performance to match just because he deserved a night like that. He wasn't there when Canada beat the US 2 years ago. He wasn't in the lineup at the time. And he's just been on the end of so many rough defeats for Canada. For him to have a moment like that, being such a key leader of this team, fixture of this program for years, it was really fitting for him because he deserved such a night like that. And hopefully, I guess for his sake, this is just the start of what's to come over the next few months and obviously a year and a half as they continue their quest towards Qatar.
We haven't chatted so far about Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David, and maybe that says something about the supporting cast that's happening on John Herdman's team. How important is it to have the depth that they have?
It's massive because the World Cup qualifying cycle is a grind. Injuries happen all the time. We've seen that in the last few windows for Canada. You never know what's going to happen in these games. You need a full squad. You have to be ready to rotate. And I think last night's game, really, that game was a perfect example of that. You see, they were able to bring in Jonathan David, Ligue 1's top scorer, off of the bench. That's a pretty good luxury to have if you're Canada, that you have enough players to start a game and still have quality options to bring off of the bench. And it's also made a huge difference in other areas, such as defensively, where Canada has really started to lock things down here. One of the best, if not the best, defensive record in the Octo right now. Just having that depth has made a huge difference in both of those areas.
So we talked about Canada's performance, unbeaten, top of the table going into the new year. Is it too early to say this team has booked its ticket to Qatar? Where do you stand on that?
I think it's far too early. As exciting as this kind of night is, and I think if you're a Canadian supporter, you can definitely ride this victory for the next month or so. Keep staring at the table, or remind yourself that Canada's top. But there's 6 games to go. Just eight to get here was already a grind. Canada's got 4 games on the road. Those aren't going to be easy, no matter how they might look on paper, how the standings might look. I'd say just keep it one game at a time. Try to stay on top of each game, and if you keep doing that, all of a sudden, then maybe you start to reach end of January, end of March. I'll start to confirm that. But for now, I think it's important to know where you are, but also know how long of a road you still have ahead of you.
Alexandre, great to take us through last night's game and the road ahead.
Thank you very much for having me.